Welcome back, fellow pilgrim. I'm Murad Lazar, your host. And welcome to any new friends joining us perhaps for the first time. We invite you to discover how this journey began by listening to the first 5 episodes. Today we're joining Hakim and Zaina in having dinner with Mahmoud and Hayat as they continue their discussion of a dysfunctional family where the younger son expresses the ultimate disrespect for his father by asking for his inheritance. Dr. Husseini and his wife Zaina have just finished dinner with his intriguing patient Mahmoud and his wife Hayat. With the meal finished, conversation is going deeper. Both men have shared an extraordinary dream they had. The dreams were different, but with a similar deep sense that they were both communications from Allah. In Hakim's dream, he was asked to identify the deepest desire of his heart. And Mahmoud was instructed to read, of all things, the Bible. Now Mahmoud is recounting a story he read in the Bible about a horribly disrespectful younger son who demanded his share of his inheritance from his father so he could go on his own way. Dr. Hakim and Zaina are outraged that any son would do such a thing, saying, in effect, that the boy wished his father was already dead. Mahmoud has their full attention as they wait to hear what kind of punishment the younger man's father and older brother will mete out for such disrespect.
I still can't believe how disrespectful that younger son was. Demanding his part of the inheritance while his father was still alive? If his father disowned him, it would serve him right. Tell us, Mahmoud, what did his father do?
When I read the story told by Dr. Luke, that's exactly what I thought would happen. But I was shocked. The father just gave him the inheritance.
What? That's unbelievable.
I know. And the son was such a fool. He took off to another country and wasted it all on fast living. Then a famine hit the land, and he had no money left.
He must have broken his mother's heart too. Don't you think, Hayat? How is it we don't hear about her?
Yes, it would have killed me if my son had done something like that. When my husband read me the story, I wondered if maybe she had died before all this happened.
So what became of the son? Did he starve to death because of his sins?
Almost. The only job he could find was feeding pigs for a local farmer, and he must not have been paid enough to even eat much because Dr. Luke said he was so hungry he wished he could eat the pig's food. That's about as low as someone from his culture could sink.
Yuck, how disgusting.
That story shows what becomes of a person who does wrong and doesn't show respect for their elders.
That's what you think, right? But that's not actually the end of the story, Dr. Husseini. What happens next is even more amazing. Dr. Luke says the boy was sitting there, looking at the pig's food, when he came to his senses. He said to himself, "How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death?" So he decided to go back to his father's house, and he worked out what he would say to him. "Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants."
It's good to see he finally realized how good his father has been to him. He'd be lucky if his father took him on as a servant.
True, Doctor. But what the father did, that's what really touched my heart. Think about it. The father must have been rich, because the story says that he had land and cattle and servants, so everyone in the village must have known him. The gossip about how his younger son treated him would have been all over the village. He probably even lost face with some of his neighbors for giving his son the money and letting him go instead of punishing him. But it seems like that didn't matter as much to the father as his son mattered to him. Evidently, he sat and watched for him every day to see if maybe he was coming back. And sure enough, one day the father sees his son slowly walking up the road to the village.
So what did the father do?
I know what I would have done in his shoes. I would have put on my best robe and stood in front of my house with my arms folded, waiting for that young man to come and confess how foolish and disrespectful he'd been. He needs to know justice would be served.
Me too, Doctor. And maybe just let him sweat for a bit while he waits to hear what his punishment would be. You know, make sure he never doubted his father's authority again. But what happened was totally different. When I read what his father did, I'm telling you the truth, I actually began to cry. And Hayat will tell you, I seldom cry.
Very true.
The father got up and ran from his house down the road to meet his son.
What? A wealthy and honorable elder in the village running?
Yes, can't you just see him, Mrs. Husseini, with his robes picked up and his knees showing as he ran down the road? The kids in the village probably all ran after him, mocking him. I'm sure the people in the village had never seen anything like it.
Oh, he must have loved his boy so much. Now you have me starting to cry.
I don't know what to think. I wanted to see the son get what he deserved, but now I'm moved by the father's love. He must have had such great love for his son to sacrifice his dignity like that. After all the insults and shame he suffered in the village because of that boy's behavior, I wonder how much he'd been suffering in his heart for his son's sake.
With so much compassion, surely his father must have agreed to let the boy stay and be a servant.
This is my favorite part, Mrs. Husseini.
Dr. Luke says that his father was so full of compassion for his boy that he threw his arms around him and kissed him. Can you imagine how shocked and confused the son must have been with that kind of welcome when he'd been expecting his father to, I don't know, maybe beat him or insult him? He must have cried, but he still started to go ahead with the speech he had worked out. Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. But that's about as far as he got. His father interrupted him and told the servants, Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Then he told them to go kill their prize calf and prepare a big feast to celebrate. He said, For this son of mine was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost, and he is found. And the celebration got started.
It reminds me of the village in South Lebanon where I grew up. If someone had a celebration, like a wedding or a funeral, the whole village would show up. I'm sure it was the same in Isa's time.
I'm sure you're right, Hayat. And I bet a lot of people eating the father's food were whispering to each other at the same time, blaming him for not being stern enough with his son.
You know they would have been. But I'm sure some must have been moved as deeply as we are over how gracious he was to his son. It certainly wasn't what anyone in the village would have expected. That reminds me, Mahmoud. You said the father had 2 sons. Does Dr. Luke say how the older boy took all this?
He does. And that's an interesting part of the story too. But I don't want to take up your whole evening. I'm sure you have to get up early for your work at the hospital.
Oh, nonsense. We haven't even had coffee yet. My husband does fine on little sleep.
Are you sure, Doctor?
Well, I'm not going to be able to sleep at all if I don't hear how the story ends.
Okay, but stop me if I tire you. So the older brother was coming back from working in the field and he heard a big party going on. He stopped a servant to ask what was happening, and when he heard that his brother was back, he was furious. He wouldn't even go into the house.
Oh dear, I can understand how he would feel that way, though.
Me too, Mrs. Husseini. When their father heard that his older son was angry, he went out and pleaded with him to come in. But the older brother said, All these years I've been working for you, and I've never disobeyed a single one of your commandments. But you never even gave me a young goat to have a party with my friends. But as soon as this son of yours shows up, who has wasted your money on harlots, you kill the best calf and throw him a feast.
Well, the young man did have a point. Was his father upset with him?
No, and he let him know he loved him too. But he also set him straight. He said, "Son, you're always with me, and everything I have is yours. But it's only right that we're having a feast because your brother was dead, and he is alive again. He was lost, and now he's found."
Oh, that is beautiful.
The father in your story thinks so differently from most of us. It's hard to comprehend what a heart of love he had for his wayward son. It seems to me that his love for his son, seeing their relationship healed, was more important to him than punishing him for all the shame he'd brought on him.
Doctor, that's exactly how I felt too. That he would go to such an extreme to show his love for his son who didn't deserve it. That's what brought me to tears.
Mahmoud, tell them what you discovered about the story.
Dr. Luke only wrote down the story, but it was really told by Isa, also called Yeshua or Jesus in the Bible.
And tell them who Isa was telling the story to.
Oh yes, my wife loves that part. A bunch of religious leaders had been complaining that Isa was friends with sinful people. Kind of like the older brother complained to his father for being kind to the sinful brother. So Isa, he was by the way a great storyteller, told them 3 stories to give them a picture of what Allah is really like. That's He is full of love and compassion. Even when people rebel against Him and break His commandments, He is ready to receive them back into His family and to celebrate when they repent. The story about the 2 sons is the 3rd one of those 3.
So what were the other 2 stories?
They're both very interesting, Mrs. Husseini. But it's getting very late now. Maybe we could meet again and I could tell you the other 2. We would be very honored if you would come to our humble home next time.
Mahmoud, I appreciate your thoughtfulness, but you can't leave without coffee. While Zaina is getting it, I'd like to ask you about one thing. This was a wonderful story. But what does it have to do with you experiencing peace and enjoying a sense of intimacy with the Almighty?
The story was a starting point for me, Dr. Husseini. What I read about the father and his 2 sons was like the first step on a journey. I just had to learn more about Isa. If he had such insight into the character of Allah, whom he called his father, I wanted to know what else he did and taught. I read those 4 books in his life in the Bible over and over, and then all the other books in the Bible, and I learned things I'd never heard before. I came across details that no one had told me, and frankly, I fell in love with Isa. I know that must sound weird to you. It's a strange way for a man to talk, but my mind was so curious, and my heart, it just kept pulling me to Isa, because Isa was irresistible to me.
Does this mean you're a Christian now, Mahmoud?
It's not quite as simple as that, but wouldn't you rather talk about it another time?
No. It's okay. What I want to know is how you experienced such peace and an intimacy with Allah.
The best way I can put it is to say, I understand the Isa that Dr. Luke wrote about differently now. Even though I was a serious Muslim, no matter how devout I was, I always felt like this kind of restlessness inside of me. I was never at peace with myself or with Allah, and a lot of the time not with other people either. It was the guilt and shame I kept feeling because I was sure I wasn't measuring up to Allah's expectations. I had no way of knowing if my good deeds were more than my bad deeds, and I could only wish that Allah would be gracious on the day of judgment to allow me into heaven. But I had no way of knowing for sure He would.
Please have some coffee. I just heard some of what you said, Mahmoud. Doesn't everyone have those anxieties?
I think they do, Mrs. Husseini. Probably some more than others. But I wanted answers. The more I read about the life of Isa, the more I found he is the source of peace. He even made a promise about it. He said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. Not as the world gives? I'm not an educated man, Doctor, but that made sense to me. And it was such a relief because it seemed like nothing or no one in the world could ever achieve real peace that lasted. But Isa said he would give peace in a different way than anything in the world could.
I agree with you, Mahmoud. That sounds appealing. But what exactly is different about the peace of Isa?
Remember how the father in the story sacrificed his own dignity and reputation to reach out to his son when he returned home? He was not only forgiving his son, but he was also, how do I put it? He was also creating a new heart in his son, a heart that knew he could trust his father completely. He didn't have to fear being punished anymore. That's what brought about reconciliation between the father and the son who had not been at peace with his father before. And it made their relationship, their love, deeper than it had ever been. Can you imagine how much the son loved and trusted his father after that? He had done such a shameful thing, but it was his father who wound up suffering the shame for him so he could come back home and take up his place in the family. It's almost like a strange trade, like the father took the son's shame and the son received the father's honor.
It must have been the beginning of a new joy for both the father and the son.
The more I read in the Bible, I discovered that's what Allah is really like. And that's why Isa came, to restore peace and joy. He was sent to bring wholesome relationships between Allah and self-centered people like me by sacrificing his life on a cross, even though it was me who deserved it.
I thought Allah would not allow him to be crucified.
I had always thought so too. That was one of the new pieces of information I learned. And that amazing love of God Isa told about in his father and son story. Isa actually lived it out in his sacrifice on that cross, even though he didn't deserve death. It took me a while, Doctor, but when I finally got my head around that idea, I realized I believed it.
You believed that you were loved by Allah?
Yes, but even more, that Isa died on my behalf. I was stunned. But when I accepted his forgiveness for all my sins, I experienced a new and wonderful peace. All that shame I'd carried over, not being able to meet Allah's standards, it was lifted, all gone. Like the son who came home expecting his father's condemnation and hoping just to be a household servant. And the next thing he knew, he was wearing sandals and a robe and was at a feast in his honor. It was amazing to realize that Allah didn't hold anything against me, that the judgment I deserved had been paid in full by Isa on my behalf.
This is very weighty, Mahmoud. It's a lot to take in. I really have to think about what you've said.
I understand, Doctor, and to be honest with you, I don't fully understand it all myself. But there's no question about the change in my life when I came to know and love Isa. You can ask Hayat.
It's true, Doctor. I've seen my husband change. He lives with peace and joy in his heart, and he really loves people in a way he never did before.
Believe me, I'm very aware of my weaknesses and failures, and I still have a lot more growing to do. But I had no idea I could have assurance of my sins being forgiven, and that I could know Allah in such a close way, even though that's what I'd always wanted.
Mahmoud, where can I get a copy of the Bible? I know that Allah is telling me something. I don't know what it is yet, but I think I owe it to myself to get better acquainted with this Isa or Yeshua.
As we conclude our journey with Hakim, we hope you will join us again for a special behind-the-scenes visit with me, your host and author. I've agreed to an interview about my personal journey from tradition to reality. Please join us in the last episode of Yearning for Peace.